Hello and welcome to a model building workshop episode. I'm Mr. Allen, coming to you from Providence, Rhode Island, a part of the Community Libraries of Providence. I work at the Smith Hill location. And today we're going to be talking about this interesting French tank. This is the Renault D2. The D2 is a successor to the D1, which I will show you. Well, kind of show you. It's on my coffee mug here. That's the Renault D1, which was the successor to the Renault FT17, which was the light tank, turreted tank in World War I. And this one came out, I think, in the 20s. It's got that interesting radio mast going on. These became outdated, and they decided they were going to upgrade to the D2. These ended up going to the colonies, such as Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, that area. But then they were called back to France as the German invasion escalated and saw their end there. So the D2 is kind of similar to another tank, which some of you may be familiar with, because this model kit's been around for a while. This is the Samoa S35. This is the Heller, the Heller kit, which has been around since the 70s. Tamiya has a new one, well, newish one out now, which has way more bells and whistles than this thing does, although this, for its age, is still a pretty good kit. A little challenging to build. I found you needed extra hands to hold all of these flat panels together, and you kind of had to get everything together very quickly to get the top and the sides and everything glued and held together before things kind of fell apart. That was my challenge with this, but I think it's a really cool tank. The S35 is a really neat battle tank, I think. And I really like the rounded shapes on this because it's very different looking. So anyway, we're going to get back to the D2. And the D2 is a resin kit, which came from Commander Models. That's where I found that. So it's a resin kit. And working with resin is an acquired taste, I'll tell you. It's a lot of work to do these. Can't say I'm really a fan of them because you have to work with super glue. It's very time consuming and tricky. Oh yeah, it's got the metal rod. I still got the antenna to put on. Oops, that guy there. But I'll give you an example. His some optional parts here for this kit. If you can see how they look there, a lot of flash, and you're gonna do a lot of cleanup on these parts. Some extra pieces here. At least I hope they are. Well, they are. Yeah, because there's also a choice of gun barrels, which I'll explain in just a second on this thing. Here's an example of a track link. That's what's going on there. Yeah, anyway. So there's the parts there. I have the instructions still here. I've got the price tag, which was not cheap. We won't even talk about what the price is, because the price for these limited production resin kits is a little steep. So it's something you kind of have to want to invest in to try it. And I just wanted to take a shot at a couple of these type of resin kits, you know, this being one of them, because that's a pretty cool tank that you just can't really get a hold of anywhere else. And who knows if they'll ever make that in a, you know, injection molded plastic kit. Get this out of the way. We'll take a look at her. So again, this is invented in the 1930s, like a lot of the French tanks were. This has got one of the early paint schemes, because a lot of these are painted differently, and I'll show you in a minute what I mean by that. kind of was considered like a medium tank for the French. This has got the short-barreled 47mm gun here. Later ones had the long barrel one like the Samoa has. So you can get a good look at this armor plate on this thing. Very angular. Look at that engine deck, huh? So I tried to base this one on one I saw in the book, which I'll show you the book. So this is Track Story. There's a number of these volumes that highlight different tanks and other armored vehicles of the French Army in 1940 in World War II. So this is number 9, and this is just about the D2. And you can see that the more typical paint scheme is there. And that's got the longer 47mm gun, which came later. This is the early short barrel one. In fact, let me move this one further back so you get a better look at it. Kind of putting it too close to the camera. There you go. So this was a follow-up from Renault. Slightly heavier than the like the Hotchkiss H35. These were the lighter tanks, 2-man crew. These tanks here are 3-man crew. Here's an example here that I was looking at for painting options down the bottom here with the earlier gun. It says that maybe only 3 of the only 3 of them probably carry that 2-tone camouflage of the green and ochre there, and the production kind of shifted to different paint schemes. But this book is pretty handy. It gives you a lot of different photographs. And I'm trying to get to the color. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the different color plates, which is really the selling point of this book. These are bilingual books. They're in English and in French. And they're pretty neat because it gives you a whole look at vehicles that really aren't covered anywhere else. Short barrel there. So I built this in 2017, although I've got to replace the antenna. That tends to be something that snaps off pretty easily, I find, when you move things around. You really shouldn't move these things around much. So the hull is a solid block of resin. This is very heavy. It would make a heck of a paperweight. This is not light at all. There's got some weight to this thing. This guard here around the antenna, I had to make that with a really fine piece of plastic sheet, because some of these things you had to get a little creative to do. Some pieces of the track were solid, and then they had the individual links to go around the wheels, and there's a choice of different types of wheels on this thing. This has the mud chutes, which are common for French and other tanks of the 1930s from other countries. You can see the exhaust, which is not unlike the one on the Char B1 bis. So that's something we've seen in other tank designs. And some of this reminds me of like the Char 1, the B1. And yeah, and some of this has also got some very modern looking It's an odd mix of different features I've seen in a variety of different vehicles. So I think it looks very space age in one hand and very antiquated in the other. So that makes this thing intriguing to me. Now the decals I had to source from somewhere else on the internet, because the kit from Commander didn't give you any decals. So that's something you had to kind of figure that out on your own. So these two tanks were pretty much the medium tanks. You know, the Char, yeah, right. The Samwa S35, which is here, and the D2. Anyway, that's a quick look at a couple of French tanks and the oddball D2, which, you know, it's out there if you look for it. Again, Commander models. And another resin manufacturer of French vehicles that's worth looking at is Blitz Kit. They're out of France, and they make some interesting things as well. But again, resin isn't for everybody, because this is super glue and careful fiddling. Yeah, basically, I was working on this when I was recovering from an illness. I was recovering from some surgery, so that captive audience, you know, you kind of struggle through some of these things. I didn't find this one to be that horrible to put together, because some resin kits are really, you know, you lose your hair trying to put them together. I found this one reasonable, but still, it's not for everybody. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, keep on building. Have fun out there, huh?